Have you ever woken up one morning and felt a strange, unfamiliar emptiness, as if some part of you had slowly been slipping away without you even noticing? You glance back over the years spent giving, sacrificing, holding everything together for those you love. And now, as the seasons of life begin to shift, a quiet question starts to echo deep within. After everything I've given, what remains for me? Life is so fleeting, like the morning mist rising softly from a river, only to disappear under the first warm touch of sunlight. Could it be that we, too, are slowly fading in the flow of time? You have spent decades pouring your heart into others, your family, your relationships, your career. You have built, nurtured, supported, and carried countless burdens, always placing the needs of others above your own. Yet, as the years quietly pass, you may suddenly find yourself standing at a lonely crossroads, asking, "Where did all my energy go?" And perhaps even more painfully, who is there to give back to me now? Buddhism offers a profound truth. Attachment to expectations is the root of suffering. We believe that love, loyalty, and care will naturally be returned in kind. But the world moves swiftly. It does not pause to reward those who have given the most. Younger generations are busy forging their own paths, entangled in their own dreams, struggles, and ambitions. If you spend your later years chasing their recognition, desperately trying to hold a place in their ever-changing world, you may find yourself growing exhausted, disillusioned, and even quietly resentful. So what is the answer? It is not in clinging to recognition. It is not in chasing after relationships that no longer nourish your soul. The answer, though simple, is deeply profound. You must choose yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. The time has come to gently reclaim the energy you have given so freely for so long. It is time to turn inward, to tend to your own spirit, and to embrace the peace that comes with solitude. This is not about running away from life. It is about returning to yourself, to what truly matters, to the quiet, enduring strength that has always been within you. Because in the end, the greatest gift of love you can offer the world is to first love yourself. As we move forward, let's explore together. How can we begin this beautiful journey of returning to our own hearts with grace and inner peace? After learning that true peace begins when we choose ourselves with wisdom, not clinging, we now step deeper into an even subtler truth. The gentle, sometimes painful unveiling of life's hidden illusions. The illusion of reciprocity. Throughout life, we pour our hearts into others, giving, sacrificing, nurturing, believing with unwavering faith that someday, somehow, all the love, kindness, and sacrifices we've made will circle back to us. We offer our goodwill freely, assuming it will set into motion a beautiful cycle of reciprocity, like tossing a pebble into a still pond and expecting ripples to return to where they began. Yet, as time quietly drifts forward, a sobering realization slowly emerges. No matter how sincere our efforts, they are not always reflected back. This is the nature of impermanence, anicca, as the Buddha taught us. Everything changes: relationships, people, circumstances. What once felt deeply intertwined can, with the passing of seasons, unravel into silence and distance. Picture this: an elderly man, once the strong pillar of his family, the provider, the protector. In his youth, he labored tirelessly, fueled by love, to offer his children the opportunities he never had. Late nights at work, early mornings before sunrise, sacrifices both large and small, all made silently, without asking for applause. His love was present not just in grand gestures, but in the smallest, quietest acts. He assumed, perhaps innocently, that when the tides of time shifted, his children would be there for him in return. But as the years marched on, the phone calls came less frequently. The family dinners he once cherished dwindled into rushed check-ins and half-hearted promises. "We'll visit soon, Dad." But soon rarely came. Now he sits by the window, watching the world spin on without him. He understands, in a way that pierces the heart. Love given is not always love returned, at least not in the form we imagine. This illusion of reciprocity is deeply woven into the fabric of human relationships. We tell ourselves that kindness begets kindness, that loyalty ensures loyalty. But life, like a restless river, carves its own winding path, rarely flowing the way we had hoped. The expectation that others will return our devotion is like a silent contract we draft in our minds, a contract that no one else has actually signed. Consider the story of May, a woman who spent her entire life being the unwavering backbone of her family. From a young age, she cared for her siblings, later devoting herself fully to her husband and eventually pouring her soul into raising her children. She was the one everyone turned to during moments of crisis, the fixer, the nurturer, the comforting warmth in the storm. But as time wore on, the once lively home grew quiet. The laughter faded into memories. Her children, now adults with families of their own, became wrapped up in their own busy worlds. May called them often. Their replies were brief, hurried. "I'll visit soon, Mom." But soon became a word with no meaning. At first, heartbreak gripped her tightly. She asked herself over and over, "What did I do wrong? Where did all that love go?" It felt as if all she had given had vanished into a silent void. Yet, through years of reflection and deep inner work, May uncovered a profound truth. Attachment to expectation is the root of suffering. Love exists, but it does not obey the rules of fairness we try to impose upon it. She realized that her peace was not dependent on being loved back in the same way. It came from knowing she had loved, fully, unconditionally. Buddhism reminds us, suffering arises from clinging to people, to outcomes, to how we imagine life should be. The moment we release this grasp, we liberate ourselves. Love must flow naturally, like a river running free. If we try to force it into a rigid container of expectations, it stagnates, turning into resentment, bitterness, sorrow. True generosity, the kind that nourishes our spirit, is given freely without invisible strings attached. There is immense liberation in understanding this. Instead of dwelling on what was not returned, we can shift our focus inward. Give, not because you expect, but because it aligns with your deepest self. Care for others, not as a trade for future affection, but because it fulfills your spirit here and now. And when life inevitably changes, when people drift away, when love is not returned as we had once hoped, meet it with acceptance, not bitterness. This does not mean resigning ourselves to loneliness or expecting nothing from anyone. It means finding a deeper balance, cherishing the love that is present, releasing the longing for what is absent, and honoring the truth that each soul must walk its own path. Some will return, some will not. And that is simply the way of things. Let your love be like the wind, felt but never held tightly. Let your kindness shine like the sun, warming others without asking for anything in return. And above all, Let your peace be rooted not in what you receive, but in the profound wisdom that giving in itself is enough. After realizing that love does not always return in the form we expect, and that true peace comes from giving without clinging, now we arrive at another essential step: the art of reclaiming what we have so often given away without hesitation. Reclaiming your energy. Old age is not meant to be a season spent chasing after others, nor a time to beg for acknowledgement that may never come. It is a sacred chapter, a time to gently but firmly reclaim what was once given away so freely: your energy, your peace, and your self-respect. For decades, perhaps, you poured yourself into relationships, into obligations, into countless responsibilities. You gave endlessly, your time, your love, your presence, hoping that one day the devotion and attention you invested would return to you like the tide inevitably returns to the shore. But now, as the twilight of life wraps around you like a soft, quiet cloak, a profound truth becomes clear. If you do not reclaim your energy, no one else will do it for you. And yet, reclaiming your energy does not mean shutting the world out. It does not mean isolating yourself in sadness or bitterness. No, it means something far more beautiful and empowering. It means prioritizing yourself with compassion. It means recognizing, perhaps for the first time in many years, that your own well-being is not a luxury or an afterthought. It is the very foundation of a life well lived. So instead of seeking approval, attention, or validation from those who may be too absorbed in their own journeys, turn inward. Gently ask yourself, what brings me joy? What dreams have I long neglected? What is still possible for me in this precious life? You might be surprised by the answers that rise from within. Perhaps you once dreamed of learning to paint, but life's demands swept you away from that canvas. Maybe you always longed to travel to distant places, but postponed it endlessly, putting others first. Or perhaps the desire is simpler, yet no less meaningful. Sitting quietly on a porch with a warm cup of tea, feeling the breeze stir the leaves, taking long walks alone through nature's quiet paths, revisiting the books that once stirred your imagination, practicing mindfulness not as an occasional escape, but as a daily homecoming to your soul. Consider the story of Mr. Huang, a retired schoolteacher who dedicated his life to shaping the minds of countless students. For 40 years, he gave everything he had: his wisdom, his patience, his heart. He stayed late grading papers, tutored struggling students after hours, and sacrificed personal time without hesitation. He believed, with quiet certainty, that when he reached his later years, the people he had helped, the students, colleagues, even his own family, would gather around him with gratitude and care. But life had other plans. His former students built their own careers and families. His children became consumed by the rhythms of adulthood. The school he once loved replaced him with someone younger, newer, different. The realization hit Mr. Huang harder than he expected. He had spent so much of his life giving to others that he had forgotten how to give to himself. One day, at the gentle urging of a friend, he picked up an old dream: the violin, a childhood passion left behind decades ago. At first, doubt whispered, "I'm too old to start again. My fingers are too stiff. My time has passed." But with nothing to lose, he decided to try. The first weeks were difficult, his fingers clumsy, the bow foreign in his hand. Yet, little by little, something extraordinary unfolded. The music began to flow, not perfectly, but authentically, beautifully, imperfectly alive. And within that music, Mr. Huang found something he had not felt in years, a fulfillment that belonged entirely to him. Playing the violin served no purpose but joy itself, and in that joy, he rediscovered himself. Buddhism teaches us the practice of samadhi, deep concentration, profound inner tranquility. When we reclaim our energy, we are engaging in one of the most sacred acts of self-care. This is not selfishness. This is not indulgence. This is wisdom. Think of a candle burning itself down to the very wick, its once bright flame now flickering faintly. If it does not take time to replenish, how can it continue to offer light to others? Your energy, your peace, your sense of self. These are treasures, not commodities to be spent without care. They must be nurtured, protected, and restored with tender hands and a courageous heart. And the beautiful truth is, it is never too late. It is never too late to reclaim what has always been yours, to embrace the quiet joys of solitude, to dive into creative pursuits that breathe new life into your spirit, to release the hunger for external validation and recognize that this life, this very moment, is still waiting for you, to be lived fully, unapologetically, and without regret. So take a deep, steady breath, step forward, and begin again to honor your energy, your peace, and your boundless right to exist in fullness. After learning to reclaim our energy and live fully for ourselves, there's another profound key to true peace: understanding the quiet, transformative power of silence. The power of silence. In youth, silence is often misunderstood. When we are young, we feel a burning urge to explain ourselves, to defend our choices, to speak loudly so that the world hears us. We believe that words alone can shape reality, that if we argue well enough, shout loud enough, or debate fiercely enough, we can win respect, love, and validation. But as the years pass, a quieter, deeper wisdom begins to surface. We come to realize something simple yet striking. Most people do not listen to understand. They listen to reply. Conversations often turn into battlegrounds where words are wielded like weapons, and yet, even when victory is claimed, no one truly wins. Instead, there remains only exhaustion, misunderstanding, and distance. Buddhism teaches us the principle of right speech, samavaka, one of the eightfold paths to enlightenment. This does not mean remaining silent at all times. Rather, it means choosing words with care, speaking only when they serve a higher purpose: truth, kindness, compassion. And when they do not, silence becomes the wiser, nobler choice. There's a story of an elderly monk who had once been a brilliant scholar. He spent decades immersed in debates, passionately arguing philosophical ideas he believed were vital to the world. One day, he encountered a young, brash student full of pride and bravado who challenged him publicly. The boy unleashed a torrent of rapid, dismissive arguments, aiming to prove the old monk's thinking outdated and irrelevant. The monk simply listened. He nodded occasionally, but offered no interruption. When the student finally finished his verbal assault, the old monk smiled gently and said, "Thank you for sharing your thoughts." Then he turned and quietly walked away. The young man stood stunned, expecting a rebuttal, an argument, a defense, anything to keep the battle alive. But the monk gave him nothing. No resistance, no conflict, only silence. And over time, the young man realized, the real lesson was hidden in that silence. Not every battle needs to be fought. Sometimes, the greatest wisdom is in letting go. Picture another scene. An elderly man arguing with a younger colleague, desperately trying to assert that his years of experience deserve respect. The young man, eager to make his mark, dismisses the elder's wisdom, insisting that times have changed and the past has no place in the present. The old man could argue. He could raise his voice, defend himself, insist on being heard. But instead he simply smiles and walks away, carrying his wisdom quietly within him, needing no external validation. That is the true power of silence. In a world obsessed with noise, constant notifications, relentless opinions, endless arguments, it takes profound strength to choose stillness instead. The modern mind is conditioned to react, to answer immediately, to demand to be heard at all costs. But silence is a discipline, a skill, and above all, a form of profound wisdom. It is the ability to listen without rushing to respond, to observe without the need to correct, to let others hold their opinions, even when we disagree, without forcing our voice into the room. There is a beautiful old Zen saying, "Do not speak unless you can improve upon the silence." How many words spoken in anger, frustration, or pride have ever truly improved a moment? How often have we regretted the things we said hastily, wishing we could pull the words back into our mouths? True power lies not in how much we speak, but in how deeply we understand, often without saying a word. Imagine a mother and daughter locked in an emotional argument. The daughter, full of youthful fire, accuses her mother of being too controlling, too overprotective. The mother, wounded, feels the impulse to defend herself, to argue back. But instead, she listens. She lets her daughter's emotions surge and subside without interruption. And when the daughter finally runs out of words, the mother simply says, "I hear you." That simple moment of quiet acknowledgement carries more healing power than any long-winded defense ever could. Silence, paired with true presence, holds a weight that words often lack. Of course, silence is not always the answer. There are moments when words must be spoken, when injustice must be named, when truth must be defended. But the difference lies in intention. Are the words spoken from a need to be right, or from a place of clarity and kindness? A wise person knows when to speak and when to remain silent. They understand that silence is not weakness, it is mastery. The mastery of one's impulses, the serenity of choosing peace over ego. They know that some arguments are simply not worth the energy, that the peace gained from walking away is far greater than the fleeting satisfaction of winning. So next time you feel the urge to defend yourself, to argue, to prove your worth through words, pause. Ask yourself, is this necessary? Will my words bring clarity, or just add more noise? If the answer is unclear, choose silence. Let your wisdom shine without needing to shout. Because in the end, it is not the loudest voice that carries true power, but the voice that speaks only when it truly matters. After embracing the strength of silence, we now encounter another deep practice of wisdom, learning to observe without the compulsion to interfere. Observing instead of interfering. There is a deep, almost instinctual urge within many of us, the urge to step in, to guide, to shield those we love from the mistakes we once made. It comes from a place of genuine love, from experiences earned through years of struggle and hardship. We see a child about to make a decision we know will bring disappointment. We watch a friend entangled in self-destructive habits. We feel the powerful impulse to intervene, to save them from the pain we ourselves once endured. But here's a sobering truth. Wisdom offered freely and unsolicited is rarely embraced. Most people must walk their own paths, stumble on their own stones, and learn their own lessons through experience. Even the Buddha, when asked to intervene in the disputes and quarrels of others, often responded with silence. Not because he was indifferent, but because he understood something profound. Pain is a powerful teacher. Struggle is a sculptor, carving away ignorance, illusions, and false beliefs, shaping the soul with every hardship endured. If we step in too soon, if we rescue someone from their necessary struggle, we may unknowingly steal the growth that pain was designed to provide. Imagine a caterpillar struggling to emerge from its cocoon. If someone, out of compassion, peels the cocoon open too early, the butterfly inside will never develop the strength it needs to fly. Its wings will remain weak, its destiny unfulfilled. Take, for instance, the story of Anand, a devoted son who watched helplessly as his father gambled away their family's wealth night after night. Anand pleaded, he reasoned, he cried, he even rallied relatives to help intervene. But no matter how logical, desperate, or heartfelt his arguments, nothing could change his father's behavior. At last, Anand made the painful but wise decision. He let go. Instead of exhausting himself trying to change someone who wasn't ready, Anand turned his focus inward. He worked harder. He built a stable future for himself. And most importantly, he refused to let his father's choices dictate his own peace. Only when his father finally hit rock bottom did he seek out Anand, not for money, but for understanding. Only then, through facing the consequences of his own choices, was he ready to listen. This is the essence of detachment. Not abandonment, but trust. Trust that life unfolds as it must, that each soul must face its own lessons in its own time. Just because we see the storm coming does not mean we must drag others into shelter. Sometimes they need to feel the rain themselves to understand why shelter matters. Detachment is often misunderstood. It is not coldness. It is not apathy. It is the pure ability to love without possessing, to care without controlling. It means shifting our focus from trying to change others to tending to what is actually within our reach, our own peace, our own energy, our own actions and responses. Imagine holding a bird in your hand. Grip it too tightly and you crush it. Hold it with an open palm, and it may stay or it may fly. But either way, it remains free, and so do you. Picture an old fisherman by a powerful river. Every day he watches young men struggle to swim across the dangerous current. Many times he feels the urge to shout, to warn them, to instruct them to take the safer route downstream. But he knows some lessons must be learned firsthand. So he remains silent. And in time, those who struggle either gain the strength to cross more skillfully or learn to respect the river's power. Had he intervened too soon, their understanding would have been shallow, but by allowing life to teach its own lessons, true wisdom takes root. Not everything needs our interference. Not every battle is ours to fight. There is an art to stepping back, to allowing life to be what it is, without the constant attempt to shape it to our will. True wisdom lies in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, when to help and when to simply hold space. So the next time you feel the powerful urge to correct, to fix, to change someone's path, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this for their benefit or to soothe my own discomfort with their struggle? If the honest answer leans toward the latter, let go. Focus on what you can control: your own energy, your own growth, your own peace. Because at the end of the day, the only person you have the true power to change is yourself. After learning to observe without interfering, to trust in life's unfolding without needing to control, we now arrive at an even deeper freedom. Letting go of the endless need for approval. Letting go of the need for approval. One of the deepest sources of human suffering is the silent craving for approval. From the earliest days of childhood, we are conditioned to seek validation, to be praised for our achievements, to be accepted by our peers, to be loved and applauded by our families. This hunger for approval slowly seeps into every corner of our lives. The way we dress, the career paths we pursue, even the relationships we choose to invest in. Many people spend years, sometimes even entire lifetimes, shaping their decisions, their dreams, and their identities based on how others might perceive them. They fear rejection. They long for appreciation. They ache for acknowledgement, like a desert thirsting for rain. But as time inevitably passes and the later years of life gently arrive, a vital and piercing question surfaces. Why am I still trying to prove myself? There's a story about an elderly woman named Lila. All her life, Lila was the image of obedience and devotion. As a daughter, she was determined to make her parents proud, always striving for their praise. As a wife, she sacrificed her own dreams, molding herself into the supportive partner everyone expected. As a mother, she placed her children's needs above her own at every turn. But then, standing alone in her 60s, with her children grown and her husband long gone, Lila faced a haunting realization. She had never truly lived for herself. Every decision she had made, every sacrifice she had endured, had been anchored not in her own desires, but in the pursuit of someone else's approval. Now, in the unfamiliar silence of her own existence, she asked herself, "Who am I when no one is watching?" The sobering truth is this: no amount of external validation can bring lasting peace. The more desperately one chases approval, the more power they unknowingly surrender to the opinions of others. Buddhism teaches that true happiness is not found in being understood or praised by others, but in understanding and accepting oneself. Imagine a traveler burdened by a heavy sack slung over their shoulders. Inside that sack are the opinions, expectations, and judgments of everyone they have ever sought approval from. What society thinks, what their family demands, what their friends expect. Every step forward is heavy, labored, exhausting. But what if, just for a moment, the traveler set the sack down? Can you imagine the sense of sudden lightness, the overwhelming relief? The realization that the journey could have been so much easier, so much freer all along. This is the freedom that comes from releasing the need for approval. Letting go does not mean becoming indifferent. It does not mean isolating oneself from the beauty of human connection. Rather, it means redefining the source of your worth. It means asking quietly but honestly, do I like who I am? Am I living in alignment with my own values? It is a powerful shift, from looking outward for validation to turning inward for self-acceptance. And in that shift, there is liberation. Take the story of Armand, a former businessman. For decades, Armand chased success relentlessly. He built an empire. He accumulated wealth. He climbed every ladder set before him, all fueled by an invisible hunger for recognition. But despite the accolades, the riches, the applause, he often felt a gnawing emptiness inside. The more he achieved, the more approval he sought, and the more hollow it all seemed. Armand's turning point came not with another award, but in a quiet afternoon of reflection. He realized he had spent his entire life chasing admiration, and yet had never once stopped to ask himself, "Do I admire the man I have become?" In that moment, he understood. The validation he truly needed was his own. He began the slow, steady work of rebuilding his life. This time, not around the shifting expectations of others, but around his own heart, his own truth. After understanding the liberation that comes from letting go of the need for approval, we now reach the heart of this journey, the quiet, powerful act of finally choosing yourself. The freedom beyond approval. Armand, after years of chasing success and recognition, eventually walked away from the endless performance. He moved to a small village, choosing a simpler, slower life. There, for the very first time, he wasn't living for anyone's applause. He woke with the sun, worked with his hands, and found happiness in the smallest of moments. The warmth of morning light, the softness of a passing breeze, the quiet satisfaction of an honest day's work. One day, an old colleague asked him, "Do you miss the prestige, the admiration, the respect?" Armand simply smiled and replied, "I have nothing to prove anymore, and that is my greatest achievement. The need for approval is an illusion, a mirage shimmering on the horizon, always just out of reach. No matter how fast we run toward it, it never truly satisfies. Approval is fleeting, ever-changing, forever dependent on the shifting moods and expectations of others. But self-acceptance, that is something unshakable. It is the deep, steady ground beneath our feet when everything else seems uncertain. Think of the great sages, the monks who retreat into the silence of the mountains, the masters who no longer measure their worth by external validation. They are not concerned with applause. They are not fueled by admiration. They have found something infinitely more precious, contentment within themselves. Letting go of the need for approval is not something that happens overnight. It requires practice, patience, and a courageous willingness to turn inward. It means learning to say, "I am enough as I am," even when the world around you whispers otherwise. It means standing firm in your truth, even when it diverges from what others expect or demand. It is the quiet art of choosing authenticity over acceptance, peace over performance. Ask yourself, what would my life look like if I stopped seeking approval? What choices would I make if I truly, deeply didn't care about the opinions of others? And then, slowly, gently, bravely, begin to walk in that direction. Because at the end of the day, the only approval you truly need is your own. Conclusion: choosing yourself. The greatest act of self-respect is realizing that your well-being is not a luxury. It is a necessity. For too long, we have been taught that prioritizing ourselves is selfish, that seeking peace means turning our backs on those we love. But the truth is simple and undeniable. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Just as a tree needs sunlight, water, and space to grow, your body, your mind, your spirit, they all require nourishment, care, and love. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, when was the last time I truly checked in with myself? Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. When was the last time you sat in silence, listened to your own thoughts, honored your own desires, embraced your own truth? Life has a way of sweeping us up in endless obligations, in the relentless demands of others. But here, now, in this very moment, you are being called to return to yourself. As you step into the later chapters of your life, Remember, you owe no one an explanation for choosing peace. You do not need permission to prioritize your happiness. Happiness is not something given to you by others. It is something you claim fiercely and unapologetically. Let go of resentment. Release the heavy burden of unmet expectations. Allow yourself the freedom to step fully into your own presence. You have spent years, perhaps even decades, giving, sacrificing, molding yourself to fit the needs of others. But this chapter, this beautiful new chapter, it belongs to you. It is time to nurture your own well-being, to cultivate joy not for applause, but for the sheer, sacred experience of living. There is a quiet, unshakable strength in choosing yourself, not out of rebellion, but out of love. Love for who you have become. Love for the journey you have walked. Love for the life that still stretches wide open before you, waiting to be lived on your own terms. The river of life flows ever forward, and so must you, not chasing approval, not seeking validation, but moving with the graceful ease of someone who knows true peace is not found outside, it is cultivated from within. So take a deep, steady breath. Feel the weight lift from your shoulders. Step boldly into your next chapter, with grace, with purpose, with unwavering self-respect. And remember, your happiness is not up for debate. It is yours to own, yours to create, yours to embrace. If this message resonated with your heart, if you felt even a small shift inside you today, consider subscribing to this channel. Here, we walk the path together, finding wisdom, peace, and strength in every step. Let's continue this journey toward a life of true fulfillment, one where, finally and beautifully, you are unapologetically choosing yourself. Thank you for being here. Until next time, take care of yourself, because you are worth it.